This is probably a bike you don't hear a lot of reviews about anymore. It used to be one of the top rockets you can get. And this is a 05 Yamaha FJr1300. I guess you can say the competition for this bike is the Kawasaki Concours and the Honda SD1300. Now, I did own an SD1300 and SD1100, and I did like those bikes. So in a way, I'm comparing this bike to the SD1300 because it's a very good direct comparison. If you're thinking this bike is slow, well, let me put an end to that. It's an extremely fast and powerful bike. It makes about 141 horsepower, and it's also extremely heavy. The tank has 6.6 gallons of gas, so it sits extremely high. And in addition to the weight of the gas tank, you have the battery in a very high place next to the fairing, which has the battery right here underneath this plastic, and there's another piece of plastic here that I've removed in order to access it. It is right here, and it's a lead acid battery, so it's extremely heavy. I don't like the placement, and I think the reason a lot of what FJR owners have told me is that the reason the battery is here and so high is because this bike makes so much heat because it's such a large motor, and the way it's configured that putting it underneath the seat didn't make sense. But honestly, the SD1300 had it underneath the seat and it was fine. Of course, the SD1300 motor, the cylinders came out this way, so maybe that's one of the reasons this one creates more heat. There's 6.6 gallons of fuel inside this gas tank. When this thing is full, it feels so top heavy. I'm not really used to so much fuel up here, and when you compare the NC700, it has the fuel so much lower. And that's another benefit of the ST1300 by Honda, is that the fuel is underneath here, so you don't have this insanely amount of weight up top here. This thing does feel extremely top heavy, and I don't like that feeling. So this bike is got the usual Japanese standard buttons, very decent quality, and it's with the time. You have your high beams here. There is no flashing button on over here. You do have your turn signals where they should be, and then you have your horn down here. Very simple button. This button here is an adjustable electric windscreen. So this one's got an electric windscreen, and it is nice. It's a comfortable thing to have, but not really required, and I think it just adds weight to a very heavy bike. And it seems that a lot of these sport touring bikes are becoming almost like baby gold wings. My ST1300 had an adjustable windscreen, but it was manual, and I think that was a much better bike because the way it had the weight was just so much lower. Even though that the ST1300 was like 100 pounds heavier than this thing feels so much heavier than the ST1300. Hydraulic master cylinder as well for the emergency lights, and also it's a very large button. I don't understand why Yamaha decided to make such a large button and hide it down here when they could easily put it in the handlebars. With this bike, you do have a glove box on this left side, and this is an electric button, so the key is off. It is not opening. It's a great safety feature to have if you put your wallet in there. But if I turn on the key and then push it, there we go. This right side, the weather's been kind of beating up these buttons. The color tends to fade if you store it outside. This is your kill switch, and then you have your start button. Very simple. It uses a cable for the throttle. It's a little sticky, but it works extremely well. You have your brake master cylinder on the right side. But one thing that I do like about this bike is the feeling of the materials, like the metal and everything feels substantially like a very high quality bike. It looks very antiquated, and it's kind of odd that it's just so big. It's 2005, and I honestly feel that Yamaha could have made a better job designing this. Even the V-Strum from 2006 looks so much better than this. Styling wise, you know, you don't need all of these, you know, the round and then some weird octagonal shape here, and then you have the adjustment over here, and the dummy lights over here, and then turn signals here. It looks kind of like badly put together, I think. It's not a good design. I'm sure Yamaha thinks different, but and it's definitely showing its age. You know, you have a very old school tach, an old school speedo, and then these two large turn signal indicators up here that just don't make a lot of sense. The windscreen, you push this button and it raises up. Now, as a home mechanic, I do look for things like this. That's the oil filter. So easy to adjust. This is a cleanable oil filter too, so you don't have to spend any money on filters. And then here is your filler for the oil filter. And you have your shifter. This linkage is nice and it's tucked out of the way. If you ever drop the bike, this is probably not going to bend. This will probably break, but this is probably the more expensive piece. And I have seen this system a lot in Yamaha R1s. So this is a fantastic way of tucking it in, but it also adds a little bit more complexity. The brakes on this are extremely good, even though I'm having issues with these brakes because the fork seals are leaking. I have a part coming in and I'm going to be replacing it. But these brake pads, these brake calipers are directly from the R1. It does come with the luggage, and all you have to do is push this out. And you do lose a lot of space because they put this string mechanism that opens it up and it makes it a nice fluid opening. You could put a full-size helmet in here, and this is extremely heavy. So in addition to having a heavy bike, the bags on the FJR are extremely heavy. If I kind of lock it, I can actually take it out really easy. In the rear, I think the FJR looks extremely good. You do have a very large taillight section. And if I turn it on, you should be able to tell that's with the hazards on. Let's go ahead and start this bike. Get warmed up. It hasn't been started in a while, but this thing, when you get on this bike, you can feel that power. I do prefer the stock seats, and the stock seats look much better, I think. This one doesn't have a lot of space down here because you have the air filter to clean over here. So normally you would have a lot of storage underneath here. You can put like a manual and some tools, but it's not really great for that. There we go. So you have to put the passenger one first, and then that. But that's what most people do with all sorts of motorcycles. They get very light bikes and then they get center stands, bash plates, engine guards, and at the end of the day you have a heavy bike anyway. But this one is an extremely heavy bike. So down here you do have an extremely interesting and almost hidden thing. You have the key for removing the seat here, and then here you have a way of adjusting the suspension, hard or soft. Not much more adjustability. It would be nice you could actually regulate it a little bit. The V-Strom 650 does have a regulator here for the rear suspension, but this one does not. So the FJr1300 from 05 is still a phenomenal bike if you're into sport touring. But of course these bikes are geared more to luxury sport touring than they are real true sport touring. The emphasis is on the comfort here. It's an extremely good bike, but it's also extremely top heavy. And when you compare it to the ST1300 that weighs so much more, almost like 200 pounds more than this, I think it's 120 or 130 pounds, the ST feels much lighter when you're moving and handles better than this one. But this one's got much more power than the ST, and it's also much more stable at high speed than the ST1300 ever was. This bike can be had on the used market from $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the miles, but this one's got 49,000 miles and I wouldn't steer people away from it. A 50,000 mile ST1300, that's like having a normal 4-cylinder car with only you know, 10,000 miles. Like, this thing is going to go forever. These are almost indestructible. Their engines and shaft drives are indestructible. And I do like having the shaft drive, but in a way, this bike makes extremely difficult to ride in town. It's hot, it's heavy, it's cumbersome. It handles extremely well in paved roads, but I do like to ride off-road a little bit, and this is not a great bike for that. But you know, I didn't buy it for riding off-road. I have other bikes for riding off-road. But if you want a budget sport touring bike in the used market, the FJr1300 could be the bike for you. It's worth looking at. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.